Modern motherhood makes us feel like we have to do all kinds of extra things and provide experiences for our kids to simply just enjoy the day. This was also present when my kids were younger, and I can't put my thumb on exactly when it was, but I feel like maybe it started to kind of creep in the 90s. But I feel like prior to that, I mean, there's always like, yeah, got to keep up with the Joneses and that kind of stuff. But it's just really ramped up, especially with social media. And you have a view into people's homes that you never quite had before. And some of you are suffering under this guilt because you don't have margin as far as maybe your time or money to do anything more than just live each day. But what if what you are doing right now is actually extraordinary in the eyes of your children? Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at the kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. Have you seen the meme floating around? This one cracks me up every single time because even though I'm in the last year of homeschooling with a 12th grader, I feel like it's kind of still slightly relevant, but definitely was relevant when my kids were younger. And it goes something like this. I don't remember exactly what it says, but it's basically the gist of it says, every day my homeschooler wakes up and is shocked to find out that they have to do homeschool that day. Can you relate to that? Does that happen in your home? They're like, wait, what? You're like, yeah, we have to do this. And it's kind of like, I think kids have a factory reset overnight. And the next day, yeah, they have some things that are a part of them and a part of your family culture. But a lot of it is just like, wait, what? We got to do that? I got to do chores? I got to eat breakfast? I got to make my bed, brush my teeth, do homeschool? What? This episode has been inspired by a conversation that I had recently with my 21-year-old. And I talked about his childhood. Some questions kind of came up, and now that he is a little bit older, more mature, he can observe other children and their childhood, whether that is just in the neighborhood or through other people. He just is kind of looking and he's like, I don't remember that kind of being like what our childhood is, especially kids who have technology and things that he might have just recently gotten himself because he had to purchase it for himself. And so he's like, it just feels like their childhood is different than mine. And so we had a conversation where we talked about his memories, and I talked about my memories of him and his brother and his sister and the reasons why we did what we did. Sometimes the reasons we did it was because that was just all the margin I had. I didn't have any more brain space. I was going to be burned out and a crazy mom if I tried to add in too much. And some of what we did was just because we plain old didn't have the money. We were broke or we were just on such a tight budget. But a lot of what we did, I gained from my own childhood and just the simplicity of it and how much just I enjoyed that and how I wanted to pass it on to my kids. But the foundation of it was just a view of what does the Bible say about children and what can we provide for them in this season of their childhood, and how is the culture stealing that childhood from them? And we need to put up oftentimes like a border wall around that and protect it. And I've talked a little bit about this in some recent Q&As. But we talked about his childhood and the reasons why we did the things that we did and his response. It was just so sweet. He said something like, it sounds like I had a wholesome childhood. Oh, that got my heart. And I said, yes, that is what I wanted. That is what your dad and I wanted you to have. We wanted it to be wholesome. We wanted to protect you from outside influences. And we wanted you to just have simple days. The days don't remain simple. His days are very complicated right now. And he just has a lot going on. And even though he says, I wouldn't want to go back to being a child because I can't just get into my truck and drive off when I want. But he says there was something to it. And I know that as they grow up and they get older, their lives are going to be influenced and infiltrated by the culture, and they have to decide what they're going to do. But while they are children, we get to protect them and put this like little border around them and decide what is going to influence them. And I really wanted them to have a wholesome childhood. And I was just so glad to hear that. And I was like, yes, that's for the win right there. I'm like, give me a big W for that, right? And I think that should be the goal. I think that should be the goal of all of us. And I tried to convey that, as I mentioned, in some Q&A episodes, specifically the episode before this, episode 413. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that one. But right now, I'm going to flesh this out a little bit more. And I have two main points when I want to talk to you about the fact that what you as an adult see as an ordinary day, your homeschooler sees as extraordinary. Albeit they might not be excited about the homeschool and shocked every morning to find out that they actually have some responsibilities in the home and that you have some goals for their home education. Besides that, kids tend to wake up, and they should wake up in good moods with energy and enthusiasm for the day. If your child is not, then that is definitely something that you should be looking into. I mean, they talk about kids and just all the energy that they have. They have a lot of energy, and I think part of it's because they have not as many responsibilities, and their bodies are younger, and they just have a lot of bottled up energy, and getting a good night of sleep and eating some really good nourishing food really helps that. And so our kids, they enter every single day wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they're looking for an adventure. I remember specifically, at least my boys saying, I remember thinking that, okay, their goal is to have fun today. And sometimes it would be at the expense of getting in trouble, having to be disciplined and discipled because they were being uncooperative and disrespectful during school, but their goal was just to have fun and make every experience fun and enjoyable. And I think a lot of kids just have that good disposition. And they are, if you want to use optimists or pessimists, I think most kids are optimistic. And I think that we can kind of sometimes unintentionally beat that out of them just by the way that we are living. But we should look at that and say, what an amazing thing that they can wake up with just this joy and enthusiasm for the day. And what you're looking at as the day, you're like, okay, this is just a regular, ordinary day. We are just going to be home. They see it as an extraordinary day. So I have two main points that I want to share with you today. The first is that your children are not bored by the day in and day out rhythm of the day, unless, remember this part here, unless you have taught them that. If you are bored by day in and day out possibly being home, there are some seasons where it is just easier and it is best to just be home. And I think that overall as homeschoolers, I think it's a good thing for us to be home more than we are out. That's just my own personal opinion. If that's not your opinion and that's not how you operate, that's okay. We can have a difference of that. But I think there's just something about being home because childhood really is a short period of time. And when I talk to my kids about their memories, they have memories outside of the home and different things, but a lot of the memories center around us being home in our backyard and playing and just maybe family nights and movies and the things we would just do and building tents and all of those things. And kids are not bored by that day in and day out rhythm that you have created. Make sure that you're honoring them in that rhythm unless you teach them that it's boring. If you're walking around and you're like, this is just so boring to be home, I don't want to be home, and you just have a negative attitude, whether you are voicing that or it's just in the way you're carrying yourself, your kids will catch on to that. And they'll think that being home is not enough. And you can get yourself out of this and you can reteach them. But I think that they just come with that, that factory reset every single morning, and they're not bored with the prospects of what's going on that day. Just think about kids just being so excited for whatever's going on. Now, especially as we are getting into the holiday season, and you might say, surprise, after dinner, we're going to get into our pajamas, and we're going to get some popcorn and hot cocoa, and we're going to drive around, and we're going to look at the lights in the neighborhood, and the kids are like, yeah! And you know that you need to hold off on telling them that until the right time. Or the rest of the day is gone. That's all they're going to be talking about. That's all they're going to be focusing on. The math isn't going to get done. The chores aren't going to get done. And so you hold off and you wait, and you know that they are excited about it. To you and your husband, is that exciting? No, not anymore, but you do it for your kids because you know that just something simple, something ordinary, just like getting into the car when it's dark and it's cold out, just in my pajamas and eating popcorn and drinking hot cocoa and putting the windows down with the heat blasting and Christmas carols. And you guys, look at over there at those lights. That is just something simple. It's really quite ordinary. It's not that big of a deal, but your child, they think that that is just extraordinary and they will remember that. So, point number one is that kids are not bored by the day in, day out rhythms. Now, I know that example was not necessarily day in and day out. If you do that every single day, they aren't going to think that it's, maybe extraordinary to go look at lights. It just kind of, but maybe some of them might, but it just becomes a thing like our day in and day out. This is what we're doing. Having that predictability really gives children a sense of security. And I think it's a really good thing. And I think we need to focus on that, is giving our kids security so that during these years, they can develop their gifts, talents, abilities. They can learn about God. They can deepen their faith. And all of those fantastic things that we want to provide them as a foundation can be done when they feel secure. And having a rhythm to the day really helps them. Point number two is that the ordinary days full of homeschool lessons, which can include formal and informal homeschool lessons, the playing, the chores, the meals, the maybe one TV show that they get to watch a day or every other day, or the audiobooks that they get to listen to, whatever it is in your days. It's the playing outside on maybe a sunny day. It is the first snowfall of the season. But just the regular things, the things that you are doing as part of your day, hold unexpected excitement for our children. I know I see kids sometimes are just in their own world. Recently, I was working outside and a neighbor child walked by and I said, "Hey, good morning," and said their name. And this child was just singing and whistling and whatever else, had no idea I was even around. Was I offended at all that maybe an 8-year-old didn't sense that I was around, didn't hear me, didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me? No, absolutely. I actually smiled and kind of chuckled because they were just in their own world, just happy to be walking outside in the sunshine, just kind of skipping and singing and whistling and humming along. And that's what our kids should be doing. And going back to that security, this allows them to just be able to just be free, to be themselves, to not be inhibited by the way that they are. And I think that part of the reason why homeschoolers are seen as being weird is because they just have that security, that foundation that they can just be themselves and they don't really care what other people think. But the days that are full of just the homeschool lessons and the changing diapers and taking a walk and playing outside, playing inside, making forts inside, raking leaves, doing your chores, helping you maybe create some meals, setting the table for dinner, emptying the dishwasher, all of that can hold unexpected excitement for our children. But it goes back to, have you beaten that out of them? Do they feel like this is a drudgery? And if they feel like it's a drudgery, it's possibly because you feel like it's a drudgery as well. And so that's some heart work that us as homeschool moms need to do. And this, I'm not calling the pot calling the kettle black. Like, I'm not saying you are doing something that I am not doing or that I have not done. And this is something that I have to remember. And as they get older, my youngest is a 17-year-old and he's, the regular day in and day out is not really super extraordinary for him anymore because he knows there's some really great fun things to do out there. But still, in his homeschool, I try to tie in some books and some resources that are really going to intrigue him. We can have good conversations. And even though sometimes as they get to be teens, they might not show that excitement for things, you kind of pull something out, you can see out of the corner of your eye, just maybe a little bit of a smirk, or maybe it's that time where they don't eye roll you, or they don't kind of like slump their shoulders kind of sit back a little bit more. Like, you're like, yeah, all right, I picked a good book for us to be able to read, or a good resource for us to dig into. I hope that these 2 points has drawn your attention and has caused you to possibly think a little bit about your days and how often we can feel pushed by just culture, social media, other friends, other homeschoolers, that we need to be doing more. And just simple days, day in and day out, and what you're doing at home is that it's not enough. And it is enough because your child looks at it as extraordinary. And these 2 points that I wanted to make, I just really hope that it encourages you to reevaluate that and just understand, especially as we get into the holiday season here, and there is going to be a push to do more and more and more and more. You have to know your line. You have to know where your boundaries are. What margin do you have? Do you have zero margin? Can possibly maybe a couple of cute little Christmas things replace something that you're doing? If you can't add more, that's okay. Just the day in and day out. The fact that you'll probably get a Christmas tree and put it in the house, that to them is extraordinary. And to you, you're like, we've been doing this for X amount of years, but still every year it's just magical and it's fun for them. And so I want to encourage you to stop and take a look at your day through the eyes of your child and see how they perceive the day. If you are enjoying this podcast, I would love to be able to hear about that, and so would other homeschool moms. The number one way you can do that is to leave a review. So you can leave a rating, which is a number of stars, and you can actually write something out, which would be a review. Now on Apple, you can do both of those. When it comes to Spotify, you need to leave some type of review on a specific podcast episode, which could be this one right here. But this helps to let the algorithm know, hey, there's moms that are listening and that they enjoy it. So it can then send it out to other homeschool moms or possible homeschool moms that are thinking about it. And so I would greatly appreciate your help in that. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.